Hi all, welcome to my channel, and this is the third day of writing a SQL query, solving a SQL query from Leetcode and converting that into Pyspark. So we will go easy with first four videos, and then we'll start with joins, which will be a little bit complex. So yeah, let's start. So today's problem is about, we have only two columns. It's a very basic problem that we'll be solving today about group by clause, that what is group by clause. Okay, and it's a very important concept in SQL, yet a very simple one, but it's used like it's a very basic pillar of learning SQL. Okay, so we have two columns, user ID and follower ID. So it's the primary combination key for this table, and this table contains the IDs of user and a follower in a social media app where the follower follows the user. That's a simple statement. Now what do we have to find? Write a solution that will for each user return the number of followers. So basically for each user, how many followers are there? That's the simple problem. Okay, we have to find the count of it and return the result table ordered by user ID in ascending order. So we have to order the user ID by ascending order. Now let's look at the input table. So we have user ID 0 who has follower ID 1, user ID 1, follower ID 0, user ID 2 is appearing 2 times. Okay, so follower ID is 0 and 1. So these are the followers for these users. Now as per the problem statement, what do we have to find? We have to find that for each user, how many followers are there. So let's break down this one. Okay, so for user ID 0, we can see only one follower. For user ID 1, we can see only one follower, which is the follower ID 0. And for user ID 2, we can see two followers, 0 and 1. Okay, so this will be our output. Okay, so yep, this is our output. So with SQL, it will be a very simple syntax. So what we are doing is we are selecting user ID and we are doing the count. So this is an aggregate function in SQL. Who are beginners in SQL, you can go through this concept. What it does, it just does a count of all the followers. Okay, count as in like 1, 2, 3, 4. It will count it. But what is the condition? We have to find the count of the follower IDs for particular user ID, right? So if we do a count of follower ID from followers, what it will do is it will just count that how many follower IDs are there. That is 4. But that is not our use case. Our use case is that for each user, how many followers are there. So here comes group by. Okay, so what we are doing is we are grouping each of the user IDs, and then we are doing the count of the follower ID, right? So what that will do is it will give me that for each user how many followers are there. So you see, if we break down this syntax, so first what it is doing is it is selecting from followers. Okay, let's assume that this is a star first. Okay, let's assume this is a star. So first it is selecting all of the data from the table followers, then it is grouping by the user ID. So this user ID column, it is grouping by. So grouping by means that user ID 0 is one group, user ID 1 is one group, user ID 2 is one group. So this is the group of the user IDs. And once it does that, then it is selecting for output as user ID column, right? And the count of the follower ID. So it will go into each user ID and see how many followers are there. So that is the reason, since user ID 0 has one follower, that is 101. User ID 1 has one follower, that is 10. And user ID 2 has two followers, so it has two followers. So this is how it is working, and then we are doing ordering by order ID ascending. So it's just in the ascending order, like 0, 1, 2. If it didn't give ascending, if we give descending, it would have been 2, 1, 0. So that's a very simple fact. Okay, now let's write this into Pyspark. Okay, so I've already written the code. I'll just quickly explain it. So this part I will not explain again today. Whoever wants to understand, please go through the previous two videos and you will get a brief idea on how the initial part of a Pyspark code works. Okay, so what we have done is we have taken the data that we are getting and we have defined that into a list, and then we have defined a schema, a structure for it with the headers of the data. And then what we are doing is we are creating a Spark data frame right? And we are combining the data list and the schema list. So what this does is it syncs the data with the headers. Why? Because we are creating a data frame, right? So data frame is a tabular format which contains data along with the headers. It's a table basically. Okay, so here comes our main code. So we are doing a df, we are giving a variable name, right? And then this df that we have created in the previous step. Okay, let's try to understand the sequence of it. Okay, so you see, first what we are doing, so what we did in SQL is, first we did a group by, right? So instead of doing the count in the beginning itself, we grouped by the user ID because we want the data for each user ID, right? So that is why we are doing group by user ID. Then we are doing the count. So there's a very interesting thing over here, that when you are doing an aggregate function, so count is an aggregate function. What is the meaning of aggregate function? Aggregate function means that it combines values. Okay, it does an aggregation of values. So we have some aggregate functions which will be covered in the next video, like count, then we have sum, then we have max, then min. These are some aggregate functions. Then we have average as well. So what these functions do is it combines values and gives me a single value. So it's a many to one mapping. Okay, so for this in Pyspark it's needed that whenever you are using any aggregate function, you use this keyword .agg. It stands for aggregate. Okay, this is a must. And then you see that it's just a count of follower ID, like over here in SQL itself, and we are just aliasing the name as followers count. So alias means that we are just giving a new name to it, like over here in SQL we have given as. So as is same as alias in Pyspark. Okay, so this df contains this grouped data by the user ID and also contains the count of the follower IDs. Now the last step was to order by the user ID ascending. Okay, so that is why we are doing a final thing, a final result df, which is taking the previous df and then doing the order by clause by the user ID, and that is it. Okay, so let me just run it once. So first what will I do, I will comment this out to show you that how the data frame looks like. Please bear with me. So you know, show means that it just shows you the data, like how the data frame looks like. Okay, so it's running. Yep, so this is our input data. You see, this is a table which contains the headers and the data as well. Okay, now let me just comment this out and let me just uncomment the results. Okay, so our data should look like, our final data frame should look like, yes. So you see that it's selecting the user ID and it's selecting the followers underscore count, which is the alias that we had given, and it is returning the data. So grouping by each user ID, it is giving me the count of each followers. Okay, one more thing, group by clause comes with another thing, another clause, another function called having. Okay, so what it does, it groups by a particular column and it specifies a condition, like where condition itself it specifies. Let's say for this one we want to do like having followers count greater than 1. Okay, so if we do that, greater than 1, how many followers were there, for how many user IDs were there which had greater than 1 followers? Only the user ID 2. So it will return me the user ID 2. So group by having comes hand in hand. Again, group by is very important and a very basic topic, because when you are using CTEs or you are using joins, these all comes handy. Okay, so this is a very short video because I didn't want to spend much time on this. So next day we'll be covering aggregate functions and then joins. So thank you for watching the video. Please leave a feedback or comment in the video as in how the videos are going, and also please like, subscribe and share with your friends and your network. See you next day. Bye bye.